Nikola Motors is generating a lot of buzz in the media as well as the stock community right now. They recently did a reverse merger in order to IPO, and the price when they started trading under the ticker symbol NKLA was $35 per share. And quickly they came out of the gates running, and the stock ran all the way up to $92. However, it's pulled back today as I'm recording this video to around $65 per share. With Nikola's grand vision laid out by the management team and investors just soaking this up, everyone sees this as the next Tesla to invest in. And I think investors threw fundamentals out the window and just bought in on growth and hype. Before Nikola IPO'd, they were worth around $3 billion. And then when they IPO'd through the reverse merger, they were worth $12 billion. And then shortly after, like 5 days later, their stock price shot up to $92, and that put them at a valuation of $39 billion. That was Tesla's valuation last year. And Tesla has already proven that they've had a profitable quarter, they can generate revenues, and they were able to ship around 400,000 cars per year. While Nikola, on the other hand, has just hype. They have a couple prototypes and that's it. So from all this, you can tell that I'm quite bearish on Nikola for the short term right now. I think their valuation is very rich. They have nothing to show behind it other than a plan and a few prototypes. And there's a lot of risk for investors going forward if they're holding the stock for the long term. In today's video, I'll be going over the pros and the cons that I see in Nikola stock. Mainly there's a lot of cons, but there are some pros to the company. And if you guys agree or disagree with me, leave that down in the comments down below. I would love to hear your opinion because all the research that I've been doing, I can only find negatives on this company. Welcome back to The Fire Grind. My name is Daniel, and on this channel, we talk about personal finance. And in today's video, as I mentioned, we'll be going over Nikola stock and why I'm not investing in it and not going to buy into all this hype. So the first reason why I'm not going to buy into this hype from an engineering standpoint is that Nikola has very aggressive timelines to bring a truck to market. Sure, they're partnering with a bunch of OEMs and having them do a lot of the design, but they also think that they can release a truck by next year. That's quite insane. They have a few prototypes, and sure, they look very polished on the outside, but if you look under the hood, likely it's probably looking very messy. And I can't see a company with very little experience and any sort of track record of bringing a truck to market to actually be able to deliver on this. And sure, they're only doing the battery system, but look at how long it took Tesla to do. And there's no way, in my opinion, that they're going to be able to deliver on this next year. And I think the one thing that they don't realize going forward is that although they can ship product and maybe it is finished by next year somehow, the reliability of these trucks is probably going to be horrendous. There's going to be a lot of different flaws in the first builds, and there's going to be a lot of complaints. But over time, over the next 5-10 years, they're probably going to get fixed. But with their current valuations, which I'll talk about later, it still doesn't make sense to me to be investing in the stock at these levels. The next thing that I want to point out is that the CEO, or now the executive chairman because he relinquished his CEO position, sold off 7 million shares at $10 a piece when the company IPO'd. But for those of you who are bulls in this company, that's not a very large stake in his position. He currently is valued at around $8.1 billion, and selling off 7 million shares at $10 a piece puts that sale at $70 million. So maybe Trevor just needed some cash, so let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. But there are still a lot of flaws with this business. The next thing I see as a huge problem with this business is that they have $0 in deposits right now. However, prior to 2018, they actually collected some deposits, but Trevor Milton decided to give these deposits back. And I think this might be a bad move on his part because those customers who had to deposit in, and this deposit was actually very small, only at $1,500, versus the Tesla Semi, which I think is around $20,000. These customers got their money back. And Trevor Milton wanted to be different from Tesla, saying that he's not building his company off of deposits. But the one thing that was a red flag for me is that now these companies have $0 of skin in the game, and they can pull out from these contracts whenever they want. Sure, they may say it's binding, such as Anheuser-Busch, but I think Anheuser-Busch probably got some sort of sweet deal for signing these contracts. Maybe they got a bunch of free services, and they're just going to be a loss leader for Nikola. Although the trucks currently are not taking any more pre-orders, and they were taking $0 pre-orders for the past 2 years, you can pre-order a lot of their other vehicles for $0 as well. And a lot of YouTubers have done this. They go and pre-order 5, 10 of these vehicles for free and just say how easy it is for them to do it. And this is one of the facts they bring to the table of why they're bearish on Nikola. The next reason I want to bring up is that right now the stock is just overhyped. You can see if you go into different stock boards or in different Facebook groups, there's a lot of investors in these stock groups saying, thanks, I just started investing a couple months ago, I saw this Nikola news and I threw in $5,000. And today it's worth $25,000. So clearly these new investors are getting into it and just buying into the hype. And although there were a bunch of them buying into the hype early, there are a lot more buying into the hype right now. And you can see this with Robinhood's chart, tracking how many Robinhood investors are investing in Nikola. So if we take a look at the Robinhood chart, you can see that currently today, there are about 130,000 different investors who are invested in Nikola. So clearly we can see that there's a lot more people buying into Nikola on Robinhood than selling out of it. And at the same time, the stock price has run up dramatically. And this to me is another big red flag. If we look at other companies like Tilray, a lot of investors got burned on this when the stock shot up to about $300 per share. And today I think it's trading around less than 50 or so. But yet, Robinhood investors still are buying into this, hoping for another pop. So if you're going to invest in Nikola, I would be very careful. And honestly, I would wait for a huge pullback. Because if Trevor Milton was willing to sell shares at $10 per piece, then clearly he thought the shares were only worth that much. And I think going forward, we might see the Nikola stock even pull back to the $35 levels, which they IPO'd at. The fifth point that I want to bring up about Nikola is that their charging stations cost around $16.6 million per station. And if they're going to build out 630 stations like they said, this is going to cost them roughly $10 billion. Versus Tesla's superchargers, they cost around $1.2 million per piece. And if they're going to do mega chargers, which actually a lot of their customers are going to pay for mega chargers rather than have these mega chargers on the road, this is only going to equal maybe $3 to $4 million versus a $16.6 million price tag for a hydrogen charging station. So this is going to be very capitally intensive, and Nikola is going to raise a lot more money. And again, that's going to be more dilution for shareholders today. The sixth point that I want to make is comparing the Tesla Semi with the Nikola Two and just how much it'll cost to operate. The Tesla Semi currently has a 1,000 kilowatt hour pack versus the Nikola Two, which has an 80 kilogram tank. And the price to charge the Tesla Semi is about 7 cents per kilowatt, and the Nikola Two has about a $13 per kilogram charge rate for the 80 kilogram tank, and this could drop down to $8 per kilogram in 2025, as predicted by hydrogen analysts. And if we take these prices, and let's give Tesla Semi a 7 cent per kilowatt charge rate, and the Nikola Two an $8 per kilogram charge rate, we can see that it costs around $70 for the Tesla Semi versus $675 for the Nikola Two. But the one thing we should note here is the Tesla Semi can only drive 500 miles, while the Nikola Two can drive 700 miles on a tank. So if we bring down the Nikola Two to 500 miles and how much that costs to fill up, it's roughly $460 per tank. And now we can see there's a huge cost difference between the two in terms of fuel costs. One's $482 versus the other one's $70. Now if we scale this out so that the trucks will last for about 1 million miles, which is probably roughly a good estimate for how long a truck can go for, we can see that the savings on fuel if you go with a Tesla Semi is $780,000. That's quite mind-boggling, but let's keep digging into the math to see if there's something else that Nikola has an advantage over Tesla. And that's really going to be the charging refuel time. It takes about, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes to charge a Nikola Two versus 30 minutes to charge a Tesla Semi 80%. And if we look at the Nikola Two first in terms of how much time it takes to charge a Nikola Two to run 1 million miles, we can see that it takes around 14,285 minutes to hit the 1 million mile runtime. In Tesla, on the other hand, we can see that it takes about 30 minutes for an 80% charge, and let's assume that all drivers only charge 80% because the last 20% will probably take another 30 minutes, and it's not worth it for them to charge there. So if we're scaling this 400 miles to 1 million miles at 30 minutes per charge, the math works out to be around 75,000 minutes of charge time in order to get 1 million miles of distance. So there's a difference of 60,700 minutes. And if we translate this into hours, it's roughly around 1,011 hours. In days, this is 42 days. And now let's take this time and put this into an average truck driver's salary. And if we look at the stat in terms of how much it costs a company to run a truck, We saw in 2017 it was $66 per hour, and 43% of that was a truck driver's wage. So that works out to about $28 per hour. So let's multiply 28 by 1,011 hours, and we get a grand total of $30,000 that a company operating a Nikola Two could save in terms of employee salary. And if we do a factor of safety of 2 on this calculation, it's around $60,000, which is peanuts compared to the $824,000 that the Tesla Semi owner can save on fuel over the lifetime of the truck. One thing that we also didn't consider in this calculation is that the Nikola Two can carry about 5,000 pounds more than the Tesla Semi. It's predicted that the Tesla Semi weighs around 25,000 pounds, whereas the Nikola Two is around 20,000 pounds. And the maximum capacity of the entire tractor trailer with its payload is 80,000. Roughly, we can see that the Tesla Semi can only carry 90% of what the Nikola Two can carry. Basically, for every 9 trucks that a company operates with the Nikola Two, they'll need 10 Tesla Semis to carry the same amount of load. And that being said, a company operating the Tesla Semis, if their drivers are driving at an average speed of 60 miles per hour, it takes them roughly 8.3 hours in order to deplete that tank from full to empty. And if they decide only to charge to 400 miles, it'll take them roughly 7 hours. So pretty much after 7 hours, it's roughly a good time for truck drivers to take a break. And one other thing to note is that truck drivers cannot take a shift that's more than 14 hours. And within that 14 hours, they can only drive 11. So in reality, I think truck drivers probably take breaks every 4 to 5 hours, unless they're really trying to hoof it and they only want to take one break in between. But at the end of the day, they can only drive 11 hours total. So why not just take a break at around 5.5 hours and fill up your semi-truck there? So the extra 200-mile range that comes with the Nikola Two, from the math that I've done, doesn't really make any sense, and it's not really needed at all. But if we're going to look forward into the future and all these standards can change, it's possible with autonomous driving, maybe this limit in terms of the number of hours a driver can drive in one single sitting is going to change with autonomous driving, because now the driver is less stressed. Maybe the truck is fully driving by itself at one point, that they can actually do full 14-hour shifts. So going forward, this could be a case with the Nikola Two having a 700-mile range and being advantageous over the Tesla Semi. The 7th red flag that I see with this company right now is Nikola's projections. They project in 2024 they're going to generate $3.2 billion of revenue. That's not even their bottom line profits. If you subtract the costs and all their expenses, they're probably only going to squeak out maybe a couple $100 million from this. And if they're valued at around $23 billion today as of making this video, that's a very, very rich valuation for a company that's generating $100 million in their bottom line. And again, I think it's all the hype that's in the stock right now. There's a lot of news and PR around this company that's getting investors excited. But when the beat drops and management starts to talk about what's happening in the previous quarters, in the Q2 earnings reports, we might see more red flags reveal about this business. So right now, I think there's a lot of risk going forward investing into this business without seeing any sort of financial results or track record to prove the company. The 8th reason I want to talk about is that hydrogen is probably not the future in my opinion, because hydrogen is wildly inefficient. It's a bit more efficient than gas right now, but it's wildly inefficient compared to battery electric vehicles. The reason for this is there's 3 stages of loss that I see right now. There's about a 30 to 40% loss in energy when you're creating hydrogen. And then on top of this, there's about a 13% loss in energy when transporting it. So using some sort of gas-powered vehicle or even the hydrogen vehicle to bring this hydrogen to the fuel station. On top of all this, there's also the inefficiency when converting this hydrogen to electricity and converting it ultimately into kinetic motion. And that's about a 40% loss there. If we multiply all these inefficiencies, we roughly get a 36.5% efficiency in terms of carrying energy at the beginning all the way to the end. But if we look at battery electric vehicles, they have about a 99% efficiency when converting energy, when stepping up the voltage of the power grid to what the vehicle operates at. And then they also have a 5% loss when it comes to transmission lines. That's getting the energy from the power plant to the charging station. And then on top of that, they have about a 75% efficiency when it comes to converting electricity to kinetic motion. We can see that in all stages, battery electric vehicles outbeat hydrogen fuel cells. The last thing that I want to talk about and why I'm skeptical about Nikola, because Nikola claims to have a battery with an energy density of 500 kilowatt hours per kilogram. And this is basically double what Tesla's battery is right now, from what I could find. I might be wrong about that, But Nikola's claims are definitely far ahead of where Tesla's at right now. And Nikola achieved this by acquiring some sort of small startup that no one knows about, and they aren't able to release those details. However, if this battery startup knew anything about the electric car space, they would probably try to sell themselves to Tesla. And the reason why maybe Tesla didn't buy them is because the battery technology is likely not stable. We can see a lot of claims in the battery space right now of this battery that's like 10 times more efficient than lithium ion in terms of energy density. However, these batteries have very low cycle lifetimes. They may be in the orders of 30 cycles per lifetime, and after that, they might explode. So I think that these claims that Nikola makes, although they might not be false, but I think they could be half-truths. We're sure they bought a battery startup that can produce a battery with 500 kilowatt hours per kilogram, but it's probably not a stable battery yet. Now, after talking about all these negative points, let's flip over and see what's the positive side of Nikola. And while you're at it, smash the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed this content so far and you've thought my breakdown is useful. And leave any comments down below for points that you disagree on, because I'm not perfect and my analysis may be a little bit flawed, but I'm just trying to share my opinion here with you guys to see what you guys think about it, and we can learn from each other. Now onto the positive sides of Nikola. First of all, they're leveraging a lot of partnerships. They have a service partner, which is Ryder. They have manufacturing partners like NKLA, and they even have a partnership with Caterpillar, I think also for repairs. So the fact that Nikola is leveraging a lot of partnerships is going to mean that they're able to hit the market sooner with a lot less risk. And if we look at Tesla, it took them about 3 years from a prototype of the Model S to the actual first delivery of the Model S, from 2009 to 2012. And I think with Nikola, maybe they can do a little bit faster because they're leveraging partnerships, and those partners have some experience in the industry. Whereas Tesla actually built their factory from ground up and decided they're going to do it themselves. But then this leads to the question of, what does Nikola really offer? Like their electric drivetrain, it's probably not very novel because we can see that Tesla also has their drivetrain. They're not even doing their own autonomous software. So really this company seems like they're just pulling a bunch of other companies together and creating a product. And any other company can probably do that as well, if they have enough cash. Sure, they're pursuing the hydrogen fuel cell route, but looking at the history of hydrogen fuel cells, a lot of manufacturers have given up on that. The second great thing right now about the company is the fact that their share price is high. This is not great for investors, but it's awesome for the company. And because the company is now public, they have a lot more liquidity, and what this means is they're able to issue new shares on the market so that they can raise capital very easily. Rather than before, they have to go through private equity companies and try to pitch to them and raise an investment through them. However, now with the open market, they're able to raise money off of investors like you and I. And like they're doing right now, they're pumping the stock. And if they offer a secondary share offering, I could say that I saw this coming from a mile away. Because there's no way that they can get from where they are right now to releasing 7 different products, including the 3 trucking lines and the 3 sporting utility vehicles, and finally the Nikola Badger, which is their pickup truck. So for all you shareholders out there right now, get ready for some heavy dilution later on down the road, because this company is not going to be able to have some sustainable cash flow for the next 4 years. And the last thing that I really like about the company in terms of what they're doing well is that they have a very good marketing team. All the stuff that they do on the website looks very flashy, which causes a bunch of investor hype. And the infographics that they have just look really cool, as well as their prototypes are pretty neat. They've got the touch screen down, they've got a really nice interior, they have all their specs laid out, and they say why they're better than other companies. They think that this truck is going to be amazing, and people are willing to pre-order into this. And they really hyped up their pre-order numbers, saying that they have $10 billion in pre-order sales. And a thing to calm investor fears, they've said they're going to be collecting deposits on these pre-orders. But when's that going to happen? I don't know. And until that materializes, we won't know how many customers are actually serious about purchasing these trucks. When people are asked to pay up for a future promise, this is where people will likely drop off. I think there's a lot of trolls out there who have placed pre-orders for the Nikola Two and the Nikola Tre just because they could. And I know that people are doing that to the sports utility vehicles right now. And if you check out a bunch of other YouTubers who are mocking Nikola stock, this is what they do to prove that the company pre-orders mean nothing at all. If you enjoyed my analysis on Nikola, let me know down in the comments below. If you have any questions or disagree, please leave your opinion down there. I'd love to hear from you guys, but also do this in a respectful manner. And click that subscribe button and that notification bell to get updates on the videos that I release. Keep up the grind and have a great day.